they had the wrong person in the right seat. Like, that's a really tough thing to deal with. Like, this person's awesome at their job. They just don't fit the company. It's like literally a cancer in the company that you got to get rid of.
What are you seeing teams struggle with now?
I think people they're worried about capacity issues that they don't yet have. Growth is important, and I'm a huge fan. Your business has to grow, but there's so many different ways to grow, and there's so many different ways to get to the goal. So it's not just gross revenue. Like, if you're a $5 million company, you don't have to be a $10 million company. That doesn't define growth. Let's solve the most important one. Let's pick the one issue. We solved that issue. 50 issues went away because that issue, they were all just symptoms of the same things. When we drilled down and solved that one issue, now we have like 6 things left to do. It was incredible. You think about racehorses, some of them have blinders on because they need to be focused on what's ahead, but others need to see the horses alongside of them. So look, everybody's different. So there's no right and wrong, but I just feel like there's I see more people that need blinders than do seeing the competition around them.
Welcome to The Show Goes On, a podcast about the people who keep businesses running behind the scenes. My name is Aamir Noorani, and today I'm joined by Mike Zappone. Mike Zappone is a professional EOS Implementer and ProfitWorks-certified coach who helps entrepreneurs create clarity, build accountability, and scale with less chaos. He brings 30 plus years of real-world experience from building and selling companies across transportation, real estate, restaurants, and automotive. Michael is known for connecting EOS tools to practical, hard-earned lessons from running businesses himself. Based in Florida and working nationwide, he helps leadership teams break through the ceilings and run healthier, stronger organizations. Michael, thanks for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing great. And thanks for reading that intro exactly the way I wrote it.
Absolutely. I was reading the intro and then I was like, I just want to go straight into it because that's the whole formal intro. But you made me sound good. The pressure's on. I know it's great. But you started your first company at 19. So I literally want to start all the way back then.
Yeah.
How did you start your first company at 19? How did that happen?
A lot of luck. So I was an ambitious kid. I was working at a deli, and the owner of the deli is like, hey, had me on this wild goose chase to go find another store, and we were going to be partners in that store. So I was really excited about it. After about the 5th store, I knew that this was never going to happen. I walk outside and there's a guy that had a limousine, turned out to be a friend of my father's, and he was selling this car. This is 1985, and the car was a 1983 Cadillac, which was not a very nice car, even by those standards. And so I had $0, right? My family didn't have the money to support me. And so I went to the bank, and that was back in the day when you can actually, walk into a bank and shake somebody's hand and they would give you a loan. And so the president of the bank actually gave me the loan and said, if you're one day late on one payment, I'm going to personally come repossess this car. So that was back in the day. So I started this business, knew nothing about business and had no clients. As a matter of fact, we were in the Hudson Valley, which is about an hour north of New York City. And I'd never been to the city before. So I've never been there, never driven through, never been to an airport. So, and this is before GPS and all those things. So I was literally figuring everything out on the fly. So it was quite an experience for a 19-year-old kid.
Oh my God, it's incredible. So you just saw this car and you're like, let me just purchase it. And then the bank was willing to give you a loan as long as the car was collateral for the loan.
Yeah, well, it kind of opened up. So the tricky part was, I was savvy enough to know that I couldn't afford to get the comp and collision coverage on the car because it would have been a fortune for, 19-year-old male trying to get insurance on their own is a fortune. Forget about, trying to do it with a business car. So I applied for a personal loan. And so they approved me for a personal loan because they knew that I wouldn't have to have comp and collision on it. And so that was a really tricky set of circumstances when they told me the loan was approved and I went in like, okay, we just need you to put up the car as collateral and we need this insurance. And I'm like, well, I can give you the car, but I can't insure it. And so that was, fortunately, we were able to kind of walk through the handshake deals that I don't think that would happen again today. Mm-hmm. They would just said, absolutely not.
So you ran this company for how long?
33 years. So it wasn't just like, a lot of people start a business when they're a kid, they're selling shirts or doing whatever. And it was kind of their first tour. But this was my mainstream business. This supported my family. Like this was, we lived off of this business. So it was, we had a 33-year run. Pretty interesting. So we started in limousines in the 80s, in the late 80s and went into the big wedding business, hit a ceiling, couldn't really break through. That we had white stretch limos, and they were only working 2 days a week, and the rest of the week they're sitting around. So we like, this isn't working. We reinvented, went into sedans and SUVs, and went into the bus business, and that was scalable, but it was more difficult to scale because we had obviously way more competition. And then I went into a brokerage model. So I would meet you at one of the limo shows and, hey, I have a friend in Texas that I can send the cars to. And so my clients, I'd start sending my clients to you, and I'd manage the reservation. And that actually was the part of the business that took off. So we ended up brokering work in 650 cities around the country, around the world. And so that was bigger than my actual operation was. And so we just had, the ability to distribute work. I had IBM in 450 cities that we managed, and some other large companies. So it was a pretty cool thing at the end. Still a grind 24/7, especially with the time zones. You're dealing with, literally it never, ever, ever stopped. So after 33 years, it was time. The multiples were ready. I'm not a young guy anymore. And I thought it was time to jump out. And I did. Fortunate that the multiples up, we exited, had a successful exit, took a year off, did the things you do, you travel around. Now what? I have all this energy. What am I going to do? So my wife and I were having the endless debate. I was like, I want to open another company because I'm bored out of my mind. And so started working as a consultant, and somebody handed me the book Traction, like, hey, we run our business on this. I read it and I was all charged up. Like, man, I needed to know this 30 years ago. So the rule was no employees. So that that was the rule in our house. We could, after having 100 employees, we didn't want to do it again. That was a lot of weight. Although I still think with Traction, we could have tackled it again. Yeah. And then I found the opportunity to become an EOS implementer. And so for me, it's great. It's almost like, I guess if you had grandkids, I don't have grandkids, but I get to come in, I get to really help business owners, and I'm not necessarily in the day-to-day. So it's great to be able to be a resource and see the difference you make. I just had a session yesterday, with a team that's really, really buried. They're, working 60, 70 hours a week, and they're just going crazy. And after yesterday, they said, with these tools and disciplines, I can see the light, at the end of the tunnel, so they can see how it's going to help them. And that feels really good. It's very fulfilling. Yeah,
for sure. I feel like that happens to a lot of people. Once they read Traction, that's the first thing they think of is, where was this? Like when I actually needed it, like hardcore.
Yeah, come on, Gino. We needed that. I needed that. You should have come find me 30 years ago. I got to pick a bone with him next time I see him.
Yeah. So I'm curious then. So if you could take Traction back to your limo company 40 years ago, what are some of the elements you would have taken out of it and implemented in the company back then?
It's really funny because it's people ask me that a lot. Like, what's your favorite component? And I definitely have favorites. I'm going to answer your question, but it's like a Swiss watch. One piece lands just so much in it. So you really have to have all the pieces together. And there's only 6 key components. But for me, it was the vision component, and I'm a visionary. So I saw it as clear as day, and I'm, communicating it to you, and I'm so passionate about it, and I see it. I'm trying to tell you, but you're not getting it. You're not hearing them. And I would get really frustrated. And so people frustrated me, why don't you get this? It's so clear to me. And so my ability to communicate the vision would be, I think, have had the biggest impact. And it's so funny that communication is such a basic skill, and it is the hardest thing that we do, just trying to get people to understand and get that vision out of our head and say it in a way that people understand it, adopt it, want to be a part of it, right? That's how you get everybody rowing in the right direction. I think that's the magic. You definitely need all the other pieces of it, the right people, right seats, all those other, the data, and, all the other components are really important. But for me personally, if I could go back in time and have the tools and disciplines to be able to set that vision and get everybody aligned around it, I think it would have been a game changer. Yeah. Yeah. Organizing that VTO, the 1-year target, 3-year target, 10-year. Oh my God. That's huge, because it's nice to know where the company is heading, and then you can fill in everything else around that then. It's just, if you think about, at least for me, and I don't know if everybody has the same entrepreneurial journey, but look, I started my company. I was busy. I was really, the reason I hired somebody else, the second person, number 2 came in because I was flat out. I didn't have time to, it's like, hey, this is a vision. Here's where we're going. I'm just like, look, I'm up to here. I need you to help me here. And that happened with person number 3, 4, 5, person number 99. It was all the same. It's like, guys, this place is on fire. I need help. And so I don't think that, we step back enough to be able be able to do those tools, because you're really, you're fighting with two swords, fighting fire, dealing with all this craziness. Who has time to fill out a VTO and do those things? And it's, your attention being focused on the most important things. It's incredible. If you deal with, I had a client that had, in EOS, we have the issues list. And so we sat down for our first meeting and they had 57 issues on the list.
Oh my God.
This is a big list. We're going to tackle this. Like, let's solve the most important one. Let's pick the one issue. We solved that issue. 50 issues went away because issue, they were all just symptoms of the same things. When we drilled down and solved that one issue, now we have like 6 things left to do. It was incredible. Mm-hmm. So, by focusing on the most important thing, and again, when you're in the trenches, who the heck has the time to do that? So you have to, elevate yourself. You have to step out of the business once in a while and then jump back in and do with discipline and accountability. Hey, this is the direction we're going in. This is the most important thing for us to focus on in the next 90 days. And it gives you just so much energy, so much power.
For sure. And I think that has a lot of credence when you're able to knock out 50 issues by just solving one issue or being able to identify what needs to happen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like in a quarterly, you work through the rocks first, because once you set the rocks, that should knock out a good chunk of the issues, right?
And thank you for saying. I've yet to have a client that doesn't challenge me on that every single time. I'm like, no, we cannot set rocks first. Why do you do that? It's backwards. I'm like, trust me. And I think that's the beauty of EOS, is that, being a visionary entrepreneur, I would have challenged that too. I'm like, no, this is backwards. Do it this way.
Yeah.
And this is a proven process. 275,000 companies are running on EOS. So
wow, 275,000.
Yeah, isn't that incredible? It's incredible. There's 850 guys like me that do it. So it's it's incredible. The process works, and so. I'm always, when I first got into EOS, I'm like, okay, well, I could do that better. And I can, of course I can outsmart the system, but the reality is the system is so well thought out, so simple, not easy, but it's simple. And if you follow it, it works. The space learning environment, everything about it is just really, really well thought out. So Gino did a heck of a job. It was like there was a mic drop moment once he did that one. He's like, I got this perfect. It's not really been revised since he did it.
Yeah, that's what I hear. There haven't been a whole lot of changes. And no. What's the line? Like, these tools worked 100 years ago. They're going to work for the next 100 years as well.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. And trust me, I've challenged all of them.
So going back to the limo company, I want to hear like a fun story from it. Like, what's a cool person maybe you took around? What's something that went down where you're like, wow, that was fun?
So we were fortunate enough in the Hudson Valley, and actually it's got a bit of a rise again. We had a lot of artists and entertainers that would come through there. So I got to meet some really cool people. Tim Burton was the director. He was one of my clients and that was back when I was driving the car. So I get to meet Tim and get to know him from driving him like every day, every week. We'd go all over the place, and all the people that would, come to his place and all the stars that would come visit him, I'd, pick them up, take them back. So I got a glimpse into that Hollywood world, which was really cool. And the same with the music world, Bon Jovi and Skid Row. And actually one of the drummers from Skid Row was from my hometown. Somebody I still, Rob Affuso, I have become very friendly with him. Rob and I still communicate today. So getting a glimpse into their world when he was touring around with Guns N' Roses and all those other big bands. So
wow, that's so cool.
Definitely cool stuff. Yeah, I always say I could write a book someday.
This can be the makings of it. We talked about the outline here.
Exactly.
That's super cool. You're able to take Tim Burton and other folks around. I feel like in a business like that, it's like it can be a grind, but then you have those one or two moments where you're like, wow, that was really awesome. Yeah,
it's neat when you get to get a glimpse inside of the people, like a lot of high net worth individuals, and to get to see these people and how they operate on kind of behind the scenes. The mask is off when they're in the backseat of the car. They're relaxed and being themselves, and so getting to know them and getting to know some of the challenges that they have. And so when I started the business, I was always in awe of this business traveler that was, going overseas all the time. And I was like, man, they go to all these exciting and cool places. And I thought they were so cool. And then, then I started having empathy for them. I'm like, man, this poor guy is on a plane, all these times, it's a miserable, it was a miserable grind. So from the outside, I was like in awe of what they were doing. And the same is true for, you could say that for everyone. So someone like Tim Burton, who can't walk down the street without people throwing scripts at him and knowing this. So, there's always a give and take in those things. A lot of times that envy, or that, when you're looking up to him, it goes from, wow, I really admire that person, to I almost feel bad for the things they have to deal with as a result.
Yeah, people always joke about that. It's like in your 20s, like you're all jazzed up about travel, and then you realize, like, wow, this sucks.
Exactly.
Yeah, but sometimes you got to do it. So
yeah. Listen, I live in a place called Lakewood Ranch. It's a master plan community. I never leave the community. It's incredible. Like, if I'm traveling 3 miles, that's it, max.
Yeah, you got your bubble and you're staying in your bubble.
No reason to go anywhere. I have everything I need here.
Yeah. Hey, one of the other things I'm wondering about is that transition you made in the company from, I guess, focusing on the vehicles and, being able to have the assets towards managing the relationships. So how did that happen? Break that down, like when you had that realization.
So it was, again, coming out of 19 years old, no formal education. So I learned school of hard knocks, everything it does. So we had all this equipment, and we're generating lots of gross revenue, and we weren't making money. And I was like, what the heck's going on? Like, how could we have this, $1 million company that's not making any money? Like, why is that? And so I ended up having to go backwards and kind of reverse engineer and get my financial education. Like, hey, here's why you have all this equipment. It's not being utilized properly. So then getting into, so each one of those ceilings that I hit required me to have like an aha moment, an education aha moment. And it wasn't without pain. You get there and you're trying everything you possibly can. You're banging your head against the wall. Like, why can't I break through this? Because there's that period where it's just really easy. And then you get to a point, it's like, it goes from being so easy to so hard. And it's like, why, what happened? And that's that ceiling you hit. And again, in EOS, we talk about you either, flatline, break through, or fail. Those are the three options. And so a bit of revolution in being able to break through is I was fortunate enough to be able to do that more than a couple of times.
Yeah. No, I think that's very interesting, because owning the relationships is key. And when you do that, it takes something that's so asset heavy and makes it asset light. And then you become like a facilitator, then kind of in the middle, almost a little bit like Uber then. A little bit,
and it's funny that the lessons, I think, the one common theme all the way through, from doing, weddings and social events to doing, high end, because Tim Burton driving some of the higher end accounts we did, or even IBM, the way you treat the client never changed, right? It's always the customer facing side of it. There's a consistency all the way through. And I feel like maybe one of our assets was that we really knew that early on. We're dealing with, weddings, these once in a lifetime events, and things got to be perfect. And that applies all the way through. So there was some commonality through there, although, the pieces change, right? So now we're not dealing with a bride, we're dealing with a purchasing agent, and we're not, or we're dealing with whatever. So the people change, but the core kind of stayed the same, for me at least.
Yeah. So moving ahead to EOS, then you made that transition there, and you already talked about why. Yeah. How has it been being an EOS implementer? How have you found it?
I found it to be humbling. So, just with the risk of getting too deep in my story. So I came out of a boot camp a couple of years ago in June. And so boot camp is when you sign up for the franchise, you go, they do this intensive training that never ends. But I came out of that boot camp, and I was, if I'm being honest, I was pretty cocky. I'm like, look, I know how to scale a business. I've done this, a dozen times. It's going to be a piece of cake, but I've never sold personal services. I've always sold in different ways. So selling myself and selling me as an implementer was not something I was used to. So I had a really slow start. Had a motorcycle accident in September that kind of, that really, was in a trauma unit for several weeks, in a wheelchair for several months. So that definitely set me back a little bit. But, and so I do have an excuse that I can use. But the reality is that my start was not, I thought I was going to have this hockey stick result going in, and no, it's been much slower. So it's a humbling experience. Again, I feel like I'm reinventing myself all over again, trying to apply and being the shoemaker with holes in your shoes as I'm dealing with things. I'm teaching this great process to my clients. I need to use this great process. So when I finally started using some of the things we're teaching, I'm like, okay, what's my process for this? And how can I create consistency and scalability? And using all these tools, even though I'm a solopreneur for all intents and purposes, it makes a huge difference. And so for me, I'm relearning all those things, relearning that I need to lean on the system and get through. So the one word would be humble.
Yeah.
Because it was not, if you talk to me coming out of boot camp, I'm like, I got this. I'm going to be turning people away. Are you nuts? Now it's like, really? How come I only have, a handful of clients? What happened?
Yeah. Well, I hope you're okay. I mean, that sucks to have a medical scare in the middle of all of it too.
Yeah. That was, I had 7 surgeries. I broke, my shoulder, my back, a bunch of ribs, both wrists, my pelvis in a couple spots, my ankle. So I was a hot mess. I got a lot of metal in my body as a result. It's amazing what they could do with medicine. Like it was a little over a year ago. So a year ago now, I was probably still sitting in the trauma center. So,
oh my God,
what a difference a year makes.
Yeah, absolutely. The human body's resilient, but yeah, you're right. Hospitals, medicine, all the surgeries they're able to do, it's really amazing.
It's incredible how the body recovers. And when I woke up, I could not pick my head up off the pillow. And after laying in the hospital, when I started the rehab, like, okay, today we're going to sit you up, and I'm like, sit me up? Are you nuts? Like, I need to go walk around. I got to get out of here. I sat up and I thought I ran a marathon. I was like, holy cow. Like,
oh my God.
In a short period of time, you really, but just as quickly as you go down, you really, it comes back very, very quickly. But modern medicine, and I'll tell you the heroes of the day are the caregivers, the doctors and nurses. It takes a real special person to have empathy for somebody else, especially when you see, people are miserable and they're not necessarily, I think I was appreciative to my team. I tried to show gratitude every time, but if you're in a lot of pain and you're treating your caregiver poorly, I mean, they're coming in with a smile and they're showing up every day. They're just impressive people. Yeah.
You have so much gratitude for hospital staff whenever you go through something like that. I haven't been through something like that, but my father was in the hospital last year. And I remember that was one of the only things I was thinking that, wow, these nurses go through so much, and they have to just keep showing up and have a smile on their face and do a lot of things that not a lot of us would want to do.
No doubt. And incredible. It definitely gives you an appreciation for that. And I hope you don't go through an experience like that. I don't recommend it, by the way, to anybody. So if you can avoid it, it's way better.
Yeah. So tell me about your first coaching session. How did that go?
So it was with a client that I knew. So it was pretty, I won't say that I wasn't nervous. So, we were starting at, I think we're starting at 9 a.m. I was on location at 5 a.m. because I'm like, okay, you know what, all hyper and jittery and things like that. But it went well. And it went well because of the structure that went through. I just really leaned in each time you do a session. So when we do the 90-minute meeting, that's something we just freestyle and it off the top of your head. You're not using any tools or anything. But we're doing a session like we do a focus day is the first session we do. You have your implementer guide there. And so, again, just an open and honest, I'm like, look, guys, I'm going to be referencing this because there's 9 hours worth of material here and I don't have it memorized. So I'm just going to reference this. It's going to be the best for you and I to get through it. And I still use the implementer's guide. I still look at it and, I don't necessarily have to read it, line by line, but I definitely make sure that I'm not, flowing through a process, missing, skipping over a process. And I think that's, for me, that's the danger is like, don't try to do it from memory, stick to the system. Cause I know why it works. I know that it works.
Yeah. Outside looking in, just like as an entrepreneur, if you put your entrepreneur hat on, what are the best types of implementers for entrepreneurs?
So I think, and I'm obviously I'm biased to this, but I think you have to deal with, and I call them real entrepreneurs. And so there's a lot of people that have a side hustle, right? So, you have your 9-to-5 job and you do whatever, maybe you mow lawns or you have some business you do on the side. And that's great. And I'm not disrespecting that, but if you've run your business and you're supporting your lifestyle and your family off your business, there's a commonality. There's just something about those people that are stronger. So for me, if I were picking an implementer, I'd want someone that's lived that real, because I can have a conversation with anybody and I don't care what business they're in. They've all read, there's successes, there's failures. You'll learn more from your failures and do your successes. And so you need somebody who's had that authentic experience, because as you're sitting in the room, and again, the 2 sessions ago, I'm sitting in a room with a client and they had, the wrong person in the right seat. And this was like, that's a really tough thing to deal with. Like, this person's awesome at their job. They just don't fit the company. It's literally a cancer in the company that you got to get rid of. If I didn't have the experience in that, I'd be like, look, you got to get rid of them. That's an easy decision. But having been through that and knowing how difficult it is to find high quality people that can perform, it's, there's some weight behind that. And so look, the decision is still the decision, right? You got to move them out. That has to happen. But I think having that empathy, having that experience, because I've actually lived it, allows me to be, I would consider to be a better implementer in that situation, just because having that experience, you can relate and have those conversations. And I think people can see and feel that. So the community's filled, by the way, the community's filled with all entrepreneurs. I think that's maybe even one of the prerequisites. We have just such a wonderful community. I've not, you run into, we all get together on Monday morning calls, and we get together once a year at our annuals. And I've never seen such a large community of great people. And so my grandfather told me, he's like, if you're in a room full of people and you don't know who the jerk is, it's probably you. So I always walk in there like, it must be me, because these guys are all really nice. So.
Oh man, that's going to stick in my head now. Now I'm going to be like, oof,
they're all like just really accomplished, successful people. And they've all, they just great experience. I had an experience recently where Jonathan Bowman, did a how to be a great boss workshop, and needed some help in facilitating that. So he asked me if I would come up and facilitate some of the breakout sessions with him. So cool to sit in a room and watch him, watch his style, watch his cadence, watch how he's delivering things, and he was, he's done literally 1,000 sessions, and he's like, hey, Mike, what was your feedback? He really wanted to know. He really wants to get better at the end of it. And I think, at the restaurant, in the restaurant industry, the server comes over, how is everything? And you say, oh, it was great. And then they leave like, oh, this food is terrible. You never tell the truth. The whole community is always green and growing. They're on a path to mastery. And I think that's a really important thing. So I would say that the two key elements to answer your question is that real world experience and somebody who's on a path to mastery.
Yeah, makes sense. What are you seeing teams struggle with now? I think things probably change from time to time, but currently, what are some of the trends that you're picking up on?
So they do. I think the number one is shiny object syndrome. So I think for me, I'm watching, like you're in the architecture business and you're opening up an ice cream stand because there's, you design this space and it'd be a perfect spot for an ice cream stand. So now you're getting into business, you don't know anything. And I think that's really dangerous. I love Gino's comment that you're more likely to die of indigestion than you are of starvation. And so, take care of the opportunities that are right in your backyard, really polish those and leverage those, kind of stay in your lane. And I think people they're worried about capacity issues that they don't yet have. They're like, I need to, if you're in the restaurant business, you're like, we need more seating, but you're only full one day a week. So why do you need more seating? And so they're always thinking about like next level bigger, and growth is important. And I'm a huge fan of your business has to grow, but there's so many different ways to grow and there's so many different ways to get to the goal. So it's not just gross revenue. Like if you're a $5 million company, you don't have to be a $10 million company. That doesn't define growth. Maybe you can increase your margins. You can do all these different things. And it gets back to, especially in the professional services, it's kind of like the E-myth where, you're the baker and you're not baking and you're miserable. So if you're the lawyer that's not practicing law and you're miserable because you're running this business and, the business is consuming you, or you're the architect that's not doing drawings or whatever it might be, right? You fill in the blank. So everybody starts something because they have a passion or a love for it. And as you're growing it, sometimes you get away from that and you end up being a business owner and not. Now, for me, I love being a business owner. That was what I love that. I didn't necessarily have any particular skill. So I just love, the art of business overall. But if you have, specialized services, a lot of time you get away from that. So the shiny object syndrome is really, to me, the number one thing that teams are struggling with. And I don't think that's new. I think that's, it's consistent.
Yeah. Saying no is generally the answer to most of the problems. Yeah. And having that discipline to just say, no, that's not in our wheelhouse.
Well, and if you think about racehorses, some of them have blinders on because they need to be focused on what's ahead, but others need to see the horses alongside of them. So look, everybody's different. So there's no right and wrong, but I just feel like there's I see more people that need blinders than do seeing the competition around them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then, I got to ask an AI question. How are you seeing some of the companies adopt AI right now? Are you seeing them adopt it, or is it kind of just there?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, and I think people are still figuring it out. And so one of the more common things we're seeing is making your rocks smart, making your to-dos smart, and so those specific, measurable, attainable, the whole SMART acronym. But they're using it for that. They're using it to really drill down on their wordsmithing, and it's incredible what it can do. The magic seems to be in the prompt, right? You have to be able to deliver a high quality prompt, and you can't ask it to do your work for you. It's pretty clear when you say, hey, write a nice email to Mike, and that's not authentic. That's not you. So you have to use the prompts, but I think it's a game changer. I think that people are really leveraging it. I don't use it or in any of the session rooms. So when we're in a session room, there's no electronics, there's no anything, because it's just, if your phone is in your face or even in your vision, you're not present. So we really want you to be present and focus. That's how we do our best work. But outside of the room, I think it's a huge tool.
That makes sense. Yeah. I've even heard that when you're having like lunch or dinner with a buddy and your phone is like there but turned over, that still in some way causes a distraction for the other person. So it's literally to the point where you have to take it off the table and put it in your pocket or something.
Off the table. And again, in session rooms, like no visible electronics. We can't see them. They need to be in your bag, in your pocket. They need to be somewhere. They need to be in airplane mode. And it's true. It is a distraction, because you're constantly thinking, or the other, like you said, the other person's thinking about it. Like this, is he waiting for a call? Is he really
about to flip it over? Yeah.
And it boils down to, like, am I listening to what you're saying, or am I listening to respond? So I want to be, I really want to be able to process that information. And what did you say? Let that resonate. Let me then, prepare my response. And it just kind of slows the whole pace of it down.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like even now in today's day and age, the ability to stay focused for long periods of time is a superpower.
It's so we just heard this the other day. So I know in EOS we say, like, I think it was the PET book, Parent Effectiveness Training. You need to say things 7 times. The latest is 28 times before they hear you for the first, because people are so distracted that it's like they're listening to you for 1 second and they're jumping on the phone. They forgot what you said. So you need to repeat yourself 28 times now, not just 7. It's incredible.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So now when I need to say something to somebody every single day for that month, I'm going to tell them that.
Exactly. It's like a month-long test. Someone just said that, because I shared that before our call, and he's like, it's going to take me a whole month to communicate this. I'm like, unfortunately it is. Yes. But at the end of the month, they'll know you're serious.
Yeah. So. Yeah, absolutely. I even think about talking to our frontline staff. Yeah. Maybe we need to do it for an entire month. This is the monthly initiatives.
Exactly.
Bringing back the monthly initiatives. Yeah.
And they think, it's like, look, you have to look. And even with, sharing the vision, when you look for those opportunities, like, hey, I'm just dying for the opportunity to share one of our core values and give you a core value. So you're thinking about that, and if you're reporting, if you have a scorecard measurable about that, those are the kind of things that drive you have to walk the talk. You have to be consistent. And now not 7, now 28 times you need to say it. So it's a lot of work.
Obviously talking to your leadership team and your frontline staff is different. And going back to the company that you started a long time ago, how would you have communicated things like the rocks and the vision to your frontline? Because it's so important that they're aligned on that as well, because they're actually customer facing. So I don't know, how would you have communicated that to them?
So, and it's interesting, the vision, right? What does it mean? And we just had a vision building day, a session not too long ago. And oftentimes entrepreneurs are starting with the vision is like, I want to be, $20 million company. And so, that's not going to resonate with your frontline staff. So you really need to break it down and, like, what does it mean for, what's in it for me scenario. So I think that you take the vision, come up with a version that's going to be exciting and engaging them, because you do want them to legitimately want to be a part of this vision. They want to, share it. And that's what's going to get everybody rowing in the same direction. So the answer for me is making, showing them what's in it for them. Not to switch gears, but ProfitWorks, which is something that I do. ProfitWorks, Alex Freytag wrote the book, and it bolts on so nicely to EOS. And what it is, it's a profit sharing program. And so it really says, okay, guys, we need this much money. The company needs to make X, but anything over X, we're going to share with you. And it is incredible to see what the employees can find. And so, the best run companies, you've already plugged all the holes. And so, and I've had a couple of them that are like, look, I'm not disrespecting my frontline guys, but what the heck do they know about profit and how are they going to do it? 2 times they found 7 figures in savings. And these were really, really well-run companies. And it was boom, somebody that came out of nowhere. It was holy mackerel. That is a huge save that you didn't know about, and it's just incredible when you give them the tools and give them the levers to pull to be able to change the numbers. So again, it kind of ProfitWorks is really what's in it for me because we're sharing in that. But on the vision side of it, I think you also have to, what are we doing? What's the greater cause? It's not just in the 80s, it was about making money, right? If you do your job and you're going to make more money, and that was enough. Now that's not the case.
Yeah, it's different now. And I totally agree when it comes to profit. I feel like frontline, especially, they're there. They see it every day. They figure out things a lot faster. They generally know what's happening before senior leadership and even middle management catches on to it. And so, of course, they're able to, find the hidden corners in the profit. And then you multiply that times 20, 30. I mean, all of a sudden you're looking at a huge windfall then.
It's amazing, and it's the iceberg of ignorance. I mean, if you knew about it, you would have fixed it. You just simply don't know, and it's right there, and it's a massive, and sometimes it's not massive. Sometimes it's not one big thing. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. They find 1,000 things in there for you that it's wow, all these little things that add up. My dad used to yell at us for leaving the lights on all the time, right? So he'd run around the house, and look, it all makes a difference.
That's so funny you say that. I was with my nephews yesterday, and I was giving them a ride home, and one of the nephews was making fun of the other ones about taking long showers. So we actually asked ChatGPT, we were like, how much does it cost to take a shower if you factor in water bill and everything? And we came down to 50 cents. It's 50 cents per shower sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that. So, that now you're going to have people that are taking 20-second showers to save money.
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely on my mind this morning when I took a shower. I was like, I want to save 2 quarters. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's really funny. Your poor nephew is going to be, now he can't even enjoy his nice shower.
Oh, he's traumatized now.
Yeah, exactly. We've wrecked him forever. He's got PTSD.
Nothing will ever be the same. Yeah. Mike, funny. Before we wrap up, I want to do some rapid fire questions.
Oh boy, are they multiple choice?
They're easy. They're not multiple choice though.
Easy as there's different levels of easy, right?
Yeah, easy as can be. All right, favorite book, and it can't be Traction.
My favorite book is let me think about this. It is I should know the title of it because you just told me. Dr. Henry Cloud wrote it. And I can't think of the name. Isn't that terrible? It's right here on my corner. Hold on. I'm going to leave the window for a second because I forgot it. Boundaries for Leaders.
What is it?
Boundaries for Leaders.
Boundaries for Leaders.
And that was not rapid fire. I had to get up to find the answer out. It's a really cool book because it shapes the whole flight reflex, and it's really neat how you come across, and how, at least for me, how I came across as a leader, and the results that I'm getting. I'm like, what, coming in strong, my team is going to come in weak, and creating that opening and doing all those things. So I think it's a really cool book.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
All right, I'm going to try to be faster on the next one.
Oh, you're good. Favorite city, whenever you're traveling and whatnot.
So I'm biased to New York, just because New York City, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. That's the best. I would have said New York City. I love New York City. Yeah.
It's like nothing else in the world. It's just so cool.
Yeah. Favorite movie? The Matrix. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I must have watched that 20 times when it first came out.
I still wonder if I take the wrong pill. I don't know. Which one would you take?
Hey, AI is making stuff weird now. Now it's well, are we really in a simulation or,
Yeah, exactly.
You see some of the stuff on Sora, and it's creepy. So
exactly, especially after a couple of bourbons, and it gets even. Then you really start going deep.
Mike, thanks so much for joining today. Before we sign off, any final takeaways for everyone?
No, thanks so much for having me. I think that the only thing I would say is that a lot of people aspire. I think being an entrepreneur is cool right now. People are, it's the in thing to do. And you really have to be passionate about what you're doing. You can't just go in and chase it for the money. So, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. And it is a lot of work, but if you're passionate about it, it won't seem like a lot of work. And so I think I see too many times people are chasing money. They're like, oh, this is going to be really lucrative, but you have to have some kind of a passion otherwise you're not going to be able to get through those trenches.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thanks for having me on. Talk soon.